As a new parent, I have become infinitely more familiar with these guys. The pacifier, the humble pacifier, the baby mute button. And if you too are a parent or have been around babies or children or anything like that, you know that these little devices are very important. Like I said, I've become more familiar with them, but in my sleep-deprived state, I wanted to know just how long have we been using things like this? How long have pacifiers or soothing methods or anything like that been documented? So I looked it up and I've made a video about it. Now, whether you call it a pacifier, a passy, a binky, soother, a dummy, it's got many different names, but the most interesting fact about these things is that they date back thousands of years. Baby soothers of some kind have provided peace to parents' eardrums since ancient times. My wife drew this one, and so I'm going to leave it up for a few segments. She worked very hard on it. To begin our journey, we head back into ancient times. There are documented instances from various civilizations where parents would use different methods and items to help soothe their baby. And you can't really blame them. If you've ever been up through the night with a fussy baby, you're probably willing to try just about anything to help calm it down and make it happy. Obviously, they didn't have anything similar to what I'm holding in my hand or what's drawn on the board behind me, but they did use whatever object and whatever method that they could. If we take a look at ancient Egypt, for example, what the parents back then would do is take a rag or a piece of cloth, knot it, and make little knots along the cloth itself, and then dip that cloth in honey to then give to the baby. Baby would then obviously gnaw on it or suck on it, and it would work twofold. The sucking is very pacifying to a baby, hence the name pacifier, and it would get a treat from the honey. Obviously, Egypt was not the only ancient civilization with crying babies, and so over in somewhere like Rome or Greece, there are documented instances of parents taking sacks or little pouches and then filling those pouches with grains or seeds or bread or something in it so that the baby could gnaw on or suck on that pouch, again acting twofold. They get the taste of whatever they put in it, and then of course they get the pacifying effects from sucking on it. While not perfect, it worked, but obviously, as you can assume, these methods had various issues. Two of the main issues that could come from methods like this would be choking. You know, if something got loose from one of those pouches, the baby could inhale it, get choked on it, whatever. But also sanitation at this time wasn't exactly the best. So it was a germ factory that you were essentially putting in your baby's mouth. Taking a look at these different methods though, they're not really pacifiers as we know them, right? It was a method of getting the baby to calm down and not really necessarily a designed tool to do so. They were more of pacifying methods, if you will. And if you won't, oh well. With that in mind, these pacifying methods would eventually birth the pacifier as we know it. But when or what was the first pacifier device that we know of? Discovered in Italy, the oldest known pacifier dates back almost 3,000 years. This is a crying baby and a plate of spaghetti because it was discovered in Italy. These pacifiers were clay creations, usually shaped like some animal that had a hole in the mouth that parents would then put honey or sugar or something sweet or something that the baby would then take and put in its mouth, suck on it, gnaw on it, and again, that would soothe the baby. So unlike ancient Egypt or Rome or Greece, where they used rags and pouches, we now have a dedicated tool crafted specifically to pacify a baby. That, ladies and gentlemen, allows us to place the stake in the ground for our starting point in history of where the very first pacifier was, and that is, of course, 970 BC, or roughly in the 970s. I don't know the exact year. We had our starting point, and now we're going to roll through to the end of the 18th century. Admittedly, that is a long time, and within this time frame, pacifiers took on many different forms. We had things like the aforementioned clay figures, corn cobs, knotted rags, metal objects created from gold, silver, even pearl or ivory. And if you weren't particularly well off, or you didn't have gold or silver laying around to craft into an item to put in your baby's mouth, wooden beads, bone, and coral objects were also used. And as the years roll on, the pacifier started to take the shape that we would come to know today. And also, one thing of note in this time period and before, pacifiers not only acted as a pacifying agent, but also to help soothe teething. A teething baby is probably one of the most difficult times to go through, and so these objects helped aid in comforting that as well, and so they were kind of designed around not only pacifying and sucking, but also helping with teething. Something that you may find interesting about this time period is that pacifiers were seen as a barrier to evil spirits. Many societies at the time considered infants to be more vulnerable to evil, malevolent forces due to their age and innocence. In what way did these evil spirits enter the baby? Through its mouth. Of course. Science. I can't argue with science. I have a computer degree. But in that sense, a pacifier was seen as a blockade, keeping the evil spirits from entering a child's mouth. Not only that, but it was thought to keep them away because it kept the babies calm. An upset, fussy, or crying baby was said to attract evil spirits by the loud screaming and upset nature of its being, and so keeping it calm kept those spirits away. But having spent an extended period of time with a baby, I'm not entirely convinced that those spirits are kept out by a pacifier. I don't think they do a great job of keeping the screaming demons out of the child. Now that the demons and the evil spirits are at bay, we roll into the late 18th century, early 19th century, where things get a little more industrial. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, manufacturing was becoming quite popular, and because of this, it brought about the creation of pacifiers from raw materials like rubber. While quite durable, these weren't ideal as they stank, they tasted awful, and they didn't look all that appealing. Also, there was just a small, tiny problem with the manufacturing process at this time because sulfur and lead-based additives were used. Lead was used in rubber at the time to stabilize the material, but also add to the rubber's durability. Sulfur was added to make it more elastic and, again, to add to the longevity and durability of the product. Parents, of course, would express their concerns about this, eventually leading to that being taken out of the manufacturing process. Before we get out of the 1800s, early 1900 period, I do want to talk about one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard. In 1879, a study was conducted by German pediatrician Dr. Linder that determined that self-pacifying, be it thumb-sucking or using a pacifier, led to chronic other forms of self-soothing. Basically, what the study was saying is if you sucked on your thumb or you used a pacifier, you were on the right path to get an early black belt in hand-to-gland combat. The study was on 69, very appropriate, people that had habitually sucked for soothing. Now, of the 69 people that were studied, only 4 of them reportedly sucked with, and I quote, the active assistance of genitals. And if you do the math, that's barely above 5% of the total people in this study. Now, of course, this didn't stop Dr. Linder from calling this a complete success and saying that it was the cold, hard truth. So in this time period, not only does giving your child a pacifier potentially lead to lifelong health issues due to lead and sulfur-based additives, but according to Dr. Linder, they are guaranteed to be shaking hands with the one-eyed governor. I just realized that for that entire segment, I forgot to erase 18th century baby from the top corner, even though I went into the 1800s and the 1900s, so just gonna have to deal with that. I'm not going back to re-record those. Anyway, I told you it was stupid, but how can I not mention something like that? We must continue along the timeline, bringing us to the later 1900s where things start to slow down and look more familiar. In 1901, New York pharmacist Charles W. Meineke patented a design that would become the first mass-produced pacifier known as the baby comforter. This early patented design would actually look strikingly similar to the pacifiers that we use today. Meineke's design consisted of a shield with a nipple made of rubber, no additives this time. Now, these pacifiers became wildly popular. By the 1930s, pacifiers were pretty much a staple in Western households. Manufacturers would experiment with the design of materials, but for the most part, the overall design would remain the same. But by the 1950s, the rubber nipple was replaced by latex. And of course, the metal rings that were in Meineke's original design were replaced with plastic. However, as pacifiers became incredibly popular, it wasn't without its own controversies. In the 1950s and 1960s, some pediatricians started to show concern that prolonged use of a pacifier led to palate and dental deformities later on in life. They also feared that it could interfere with breastfeeding. During those times, research did support these claims, showing issues in dental and palate development when a child prolonged the use of a pacifier. There were also other issues that got brought up, like missed hunger cues, the buildup of fluid leading to more ear infections, poor hygiene, etc. I'm just here to make a goofy video. I'm not really here to advocate for or against the use of a pacifier, but when talking about the history of a pacifier, obviously that's something that has to be brought up. And despite these concerns and these studies that came out, millions of parents adopted the use of pacifiers. They calmed babies, they helped with sleep, they provided peace for parents, so obviously they became quite popular. Over time, and through to today, pacifiers became widely accepted, and studies are still done on them, both for the negative side effects of using one, but also the positive sides. Studies have been conducted to study the potential benefits of using a pacifier. Research has shown that it potentially aids in digestive system maturity, pain reduction, and some experiments have even shown a reduced risk of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. Pacifiers today haven't changed a ton since those 1950s designs, although companies do continue to evolve the pacifier to change it and to potentially make it healthier for the baby to use. Companies have developed orthodontic pacifiers that are shaped to promote healthy oral development. Some pacifiers are even designed with advanced technology, like built-in thermometers or heartbeat simulators to further soothe the baby. And through history, through this journey, despite studies showing negative side effects, despite your child having the eventual habit of charming the snake, despite literal demons and evil spirits flying into your baby's mouth, it's hard to deny the usefulness and importance of a baby pacifier. So there you have it. Not a long history, but it's incredibly fascinating. I would say it errs on the side of ridiculous, according to some of these studies that I read about, especially the one from Dr. Linder. But from the early times of honey-soaked knotted rags to the modern silicone wonders, the pacifier has been through quite the evolution. And it's just neat, right? I mean, it's something that my wife and I now have to use every day, and we try different kinds. We've got different types. We even have this one that's softer and shaped more like a boob. And those are kind of like the ones that I talked about that are being developed to promote healthy dental and palate development. And even though the pacifier does have its controversies, it does have its naysayers, it's hard to argue the impact that these devices have had throughout history. Centuries of keeping a baby calm and parents sane. But I actually have a fussy baby upstairs, so I need to go help my wife. But thank you for watching, and I will see you whenever.